Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at a BloodCraft deck. So we've been messing around with a few decks at this point. I mean, if you've watched the few videos I have put out, we've done one major deck for Rune that was testing, and we did a bit with story mode and things like that. But BloodCraft I really wanted to take an okay look at. I'm not really sure if I'm happy with how Mecha Blood performs currently with this variation, but it was an interesting premise, and running Steel Rot Vampire was an interesting card, even if I don't really use it. I'd much rather just use the base engine and maybe run a single one of this guy, because running multiple just seems a little awkward. Overall though, interesting enough to give a worthwhile go, so let's get into it and take a look. So kicking us off, we are up against Haven. Haven seems to be a deck that a lot of people are testing out. Definitely one I would like to take a look at. I think I've got a couple of unlimited decks that are lined up to do, but not really sure about Rotation Haven at the moment that I want to test out. So first off, of course, we're starting off with a pretty average hand. Not much we can do with it. Restless Parish is really our only saving grace. So hopefully from there we'll be able to do something. We've got a nice couple of turn 2 drops there with Robo Goblin. Really, that should be solid enough. Probably turn 3 will be our core play, since we don't have really anything. At least that'll allow us to hopefully get a better turn 4. Especially if we use Armored Bat with an Evo point. That could really do some nice damage. Plus the repair mode, of course, will also be able to boost the Armored Bat back up to max, meaning that we should be able to potentially 2-for-1, if not force an Evo. But of course, they have Blackened Scripture, something I really probably should have predicted coming down there. At least on the bright side, Warring Thunder is a free Evo. And still a pretty okay trade at this point in the game. But obviously predictably destroyed. So I was still getting used to this deck, which is why I probably didn't play it anywhere near optimally. If I had, it wouldn't have been anywhere near as difficult to probably win this as I was making it look. I always found that Mecha Blood seems to be one of those decks that does take a lot of practice to really get used to. It's not a really simple deck where you have simple line of play. It's got a few intricacies that you want to try and make sure you can take advantage of. I'm just not the best at doing so with those. I do much better with a very straightforward premise most of the time. Although I always did pretty well with artifacts, even when they were more thought focused, where you had to make sure you kept your balance of course, resonance, artifact numbers, and draw power. Although that's become much easier these days than it was. So I decided to throw the repair mode on the 4-3 just to avoid any kind of big 2-drop sweep. Not that there's much that Haven has that can do that. Now things are a little more interesting. Depending on what they want to leave up here. Succubus, going to do a good job of clearing us out. And getting us, of course, some Ward Snakes. This is where we should be able to swing the game, hopefully in our favor a little bit. Holy Lord, a good play, but probably not enough on its own. Without something to back it up. Repair mode's not bad, but really not enough. So Medusian should clear both these out. We're going to get 7 damage to the face and really get nearly set up for a lethal. Another Protector of Hope. That does seem to be quite an okay card. I was expecting it to be pretty decent for stall. The only real problem is that it is taken out by basically any major damage. For example, this Destructive Succubus here will deal a fair bit of damage, Viper will deal another little bit of damage, and then we'll go for basically 6, leaving them just at 1 health with a double ward. So honestly, it's not very hard to win that one. Since Blood does have some good damage options at least. The next match against Forest was a little more interesting, since Forest is a deck that I expected to move closer to a Evolve engine, since of course they have some decent Evolve cards now and could really take advantage of those with the effects. Of course, that's not going to be the be all and end all for Forest, as it's probably not the best way to do things, is to just use pure Evo sets. No turn 1 play, which is of course pretty normal. There's not many turn 1 cards that I have in this Blood deck. At least we have a couple of turn 2 options, not that either of them are good and would end up being a waste, but Hellblaze Demon at least on the base level is a decent ward, and at least it attracted the Justice play. So, Core being my next play, since we can go for probably another Armored Bat play if we want to, or we can go for a Roaring Thunder play. Either one would work pretty well, but Armored Bat, of course, in this situation is going to work the best, given the fact that it is going to give us a couple of 1/1s to use. Plus, we get to heal back up, which is always nice. It's a pity that Core doesn't give you play points as well, like some of the other cores do, but of course that would probably be too abusive, considering the fact of what Blood can do with that 10 points of healing. But against Forest, really it's just a matter of me mitigating as much damage as I could in that early game, making a huge difference to the mid to late game when I can start playing my big Serpent cards and potentially get some bigger drops going. This looks pretty promising. So, Water Fairies, not a problem. That was not so much fun, getting a full board wipe there. And we don't really have a great turn 6 play, looking at the current cards in hand. At least we can take out one thing along the way. Okay, so this is where things are going to get more interesting. We've got the Destructive Succubuses, which are actually going to be fairly decent for removing what we need here. We didn't get the ideal hit with that, unfortunately, though, so that's not actually going to end up being our best line of play. We could go for the Medusian in the next turn, but definitely not this turn, so looks like Roaring Thunder it is, since that is a 2-for-1. And a Robo-Golem with the Evo is actually going to work out in our favour fairly well, so why not take full advantage of that where we can, I guess. And they're going fairly wide with this now. They do make me wonder whether a Medusian would be a good option. Of course, I can only take out 2 of these regardless, since they are blocking me off pretty strongly here. Otherwise I would have took out all 3, but that just wasn't on the cards for me today. Apostle of Unkilling. And a Carbuncle Spark. So they're definitely running the whole Unkilling package deck, which does use a lot of Evos, but it doesn't seem to be quite as strong as I was hoping it could be. Even though I'm not a big Forest player, it would have been nice to see a kind of different variation of Forest than what we typically see. At least we have the options now. So we can build a decent board off this Destructive Succubus. That was our last Evo though. We don't really have anything else we can play off it. They're on their Odin plays though now as well. The Odin package is an interesting one. The only 2 crafts I've really seen take full advantage of it so far have been Blood and now Forest, with their massive amounts of Evo points. Doesn't mean it's the only ones that can, it just seems to be the only ones that we notice. And of course, I got my own Odin. And a Mono. I did actually miss that I didn't quite have enough to use Mono, which really put me at a disadvantage. I could have went for a much better play, just playing out the, of course, 6/6 and filling my board with those, but of course, I completely completely blanked that I hadn't played enough for it, that it needed 7 for its effect. Not that that seems to be mattering too much now, it's really just a matter of, are they going to have enough to kill me? And 6 damage isn't going to be enough on its own, so it looks like they are going to have to target the board pretty heavily. A Carbuncle Spark and a Sylvian Justice. Not an issue yet. So I don't really have a good play now. Armored Bat, Robo-Goblins, they're really all I can do to really defend myself. Buy ourselves a little more time to get some damage on the board. That should be their last Odin though, so that's a decent advantage to have. Now we're set to a max of 6. So this is not a bad way for them to clear out most of this now. Although I think we should now be in the mono active range, and that is our top deck, a mono. So with the evo of that, we will have just enough to win this game. Definitely was a legendary top deck there, getting a little bit lucky, but sometimes that's all you need to win a game. A little bit of luck on your side. So testing this blood variant was interesting enough, and getting to use mono really worked out nicely for that final match. I would have liked to have used the new Steel Rot Vampire card. Unfortunately, he didn't get to see any play, so it's a little disappointing for him, but overall, I think he at least fits the deck. Fits the design of the deck, and that's pretty okay. At worst, usually, you could get a rush out of it. At best, you're looking at getting a full Storm Drain out of it. Although I do find that to be the less likely of the options most of the time, and I don't believe he has anything decent as far as Evo goes, so hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe for more content. You'll find this deck list in the description below. Until next time, guys, see ya.